Hello everyone, dear Makita community. A warm welcome to this new video today. The ultimate comparison test of the two smallest battery chainsaws from Makita. This means we're talking about the 12-volt device, the UC100D, against the 18-volt device, the Makita DUC101. We'll delve into the aspects in which these two chainsaws differ, how they perform in comparison, and which one you should ultimately choose. We'll explore these questions together in today's video. With that in mind, let's not waste any time. Let's get started right after the intro. And if you haven't done so yet, make sure to subscribe to this channel and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. You can find the current prices of these devices in the video description below. Thank you for your involvement, and now let's begin after the intro. Makita 12-volt cordless pruning saw UC100D versus the 18-volt counterpart, the Makita DUC101. In today's video, I want to discover with you the points of differentiation between these two chainsaws, their performance capabilities, and of course, which one is the right fit for you. But before we start, a quick mention. Both chainsaws, both the 12-volt device and the 18-volt device, I've previously introduced and thoroughly tested individually. If you haven't watched those videos yet, I highly recommend you do so. I'll provide a link for you up here on the info card, as today's video is exclusively focused on comparing these two devices. So, without further ado, let's jump right into the exterior aspects. As you can see, both devices are extremely similar. At first glance, there's practically no difference to be discerned. The only thing that catches the eye upon closer inspection is the two different batteries at the back. As previously mentioned, for the operation of these two chainsaws, two different battery systems are required. The Makita UC100 is a 12-volt device, while the Makita DUC101 is a pure 18-volt device. For both chainsaws, we need different batteries with distinct form factors and, consequently, different weights. Typically, the 18-volt device uses a 5 ampere-hour battery, whereas in comparison, the 12-volt device uses a significantly smaller 4 ampere-hour battery. In parallel, I could just as well use the 12-volt 2 ampere-hour battery. I believe you can now see the size difference particularly well. This means that the 18-volt device is naturally heavier with the larger battery compared to the small 12-volt device, with the runtime on the 18-volt device being better in that regard. For a fair comparison, I'd say let's do a comparison without the battery. This means only the bare devices. As you can see, the 12-volt device weighs only 1,243 grams, and in parallel, the 18-volt device weighs 1,285 grams, resulting in a difference of 40 grams. But it's important to note that one device might have a bit more chain oil on it than the other, so in essence, you could say both devices are equally light. The main weight difference between these two chainsaws, as we've seen, is exclusively due to the battery attached to the back of the device. From the direct comparison of these two devices, I can say that the weight difference isn't as large as one might think initially. Of course, it's clear that the 12-volt device is a few grams lighter due to the small battery at the back. However, I must say that in practice, this difference is hardly noticeable in my opinion. This also means that an 18-volt device with a large 5 ampere-hour battery is extremely handy and lightweight. This is also due to the excellent handles on these two chainsaws. It's worth mentioning that both devices have identical handles. They're sufficiently large and covered with black rubber for a nice grip, and I have to say, both handles are ergonomic and very practical. This means that both chainsaws can be held and operated very comfortably and securely. Similarly, the controls of these two chainsaws are very easy to grip and operate. For both devices, as seen here in black, there's a small release lever for both right and left-handed users, and just below that, the large trigger to activate the chainsaw. The only thing one could criticize here is that the release lever at the top, in my opinion, is a bit too small for the thumb. This means that over time, it can become uncomfortable. This aspect is the same for both devices. I might have preferred a slightly larger release lever. Furthermore, it's worth noting that due to the different sizes of the batteries at the back, both chainsaws have a slightly different center of gravity. For the 18-volt device, it's nicely centered in the handle area. For the 12-volt device, it's a bit farther forward around the trigger area. This isn't necessarily positive or negative, it's just something I noticed when comparing these two devices. Additionally, at the very top, we find the second handle of these two small cordless pruning saws, which is also completely identical, covered in black rubber. Personally, I must say the handles are very comfortable. They can be gripped quite comfortably, and they naturally allow us to apply significantly more pressure on the chainsaws while also stabilizing them. Regarding safety, Makita hasn't cut corners on either of these devices. This means both the 12-volt and the 18-volt models. Both of them have the black contact guard at the front, which is responsible for ensuring that if we accidentally slip with our hand, we won't end up in the chain during operation and injure ourselves. The contact guard on both devices is made of black plastic. It gives a really robust impression, can be folded easily, is spring-loaded, and naturally ensures that we can cut branches and the like without this flap getting in our way. However, it's worth noting that for those who want to remove this flap, there isn't a screw or similar mechanism for easy removal, so it's not as straightforward to detach this cover. And of course, something I find extremely practical and shouldn't be forgotten, a second contact guard on the underside, also made of black plastic. This makes it possible for us to easily cut into bushes and the like without risking injuring our hands directly on branches and such. Let's stay at the front end, focusing on the guide bar. Both the 12-volt and the 18-volt devices, both of them feature a 100mm or 4-inch long guide bar that comes pre-fitted with a suitable chain from the factory. Both chainsaws have a groove width of 1.1mm and a pitch of 0.325 inches. This means we can easily swap the chains between these two devices. What I find incredibly practical is that both devices have an unbelievably simple chain assembly and replacement process. This is because both devices are equipped with a quick tensioning mechanism. You can see it here. Both chainsaws have this small black lever on the left side. It upwards, and then we can release the chain and also remove the cover. Additionally, due to the relatively compact chain length, both devices don't require a manual chain tensioning screw or similar. Instead, they also have a quick tensioner built in. This means there's a small spring inside that ensures the chain is automatically and continuously tensioned after we slightly release the cover here. This means that both the assembly and the chain replacement are extremely simple for both models, super quick, and can be done without any tools. What else is worth mentioning? Of course, something very important. As you can see here, the chain lubrication, ensuring the chain remains in good condition for as long as possible. It's important to note that the lubrication is also not done manually. Both devices have an automatic chain lubrication system, which is a positive feature. For this purpose, we find the chain oil tank on the other side, as you can see, located at the front, made of translucent plastic, allowing us to see how much chain oil is left in the tank. There's also a quick release mechanism on the side to open and close the tank cap. And crucially, both devices have a tank capacity of 55 milliliters. While this might not sound like much at first glance, in my experience, it's enough to perform numerous cuts with these devices. Now, let's move on to the most important aspect, the performance of these two chainsaws. As you can see, both devices are equipped with a powerful brushless motor, clearly indicated by the BL logos. This motor is situated at the top and provides ample energy to the chain and the guide bar. Both devices generate a maximum chain speed of a solid 8 meters per second. In practical tests, I examined both chainsaws with a freshly charged battery, cutting through logs of various thicknesses. I started with a relatively thin oak log of 50 millimeters, followed by a thicker one of 70 millimeters. Both saws handled these without any issues. The results so far, I can say, were definitely conclusive. This means that both the 12-volt and the 18-volt models can easily handle the maximum cutting length, meaning up to 100 millimeters presents no problem at all. However, things get critical or interesting when you directly compare both devices, because then you realize the 18-volt model is significantly more powerful and has much better endurance than the 12-volt model. In practical tests, I often observed that the 18-volt model has a greater pulling power where the 12-volt model can't quite keep up. This means that with the 12-volt model, it's best to focus on stabilization and avoid applying too much pressure on the upper handle as it tends to trigger the overload protection. I didn't notice this issue to the same extent with the 18-volt model. Regarding handling, I must say that both devices, as mentioned earlier, are very comfortable. This means there's no difference in terms of usability between these two devices, which is why I conducted a stress test on a timber beam measuring 80 by 100 millimeters, and behold, the results were the same here as well. The 18-volt model had a smooth and clean performance. With the 12-volt model, the overload protection kicked in quite often. Now, let's take a look at the battery. After the complete test, the 18-volt model showed 4 out of 4 bars, while the 12-volt model had 3 out of 4 bars, which can be attributed to the larger battery capacity of the 18-volt model. By the way, for those who would like to review the complete test in detail, I'll link the full test video for you in the upper right corner of the info card. And with that, I'd say let's move on to the concluding verdict, because all in all, I can say that these are two truly fantastic cordless chainsaws from Makita, whether it's 12 or 18 volts. For those who are still deciding which device to go for, I would personally recommend the 18-volt model. Why? Quite simple. Both devices are identical in terms of size, so there's no difference there. The 12-volt model is only slightly lighter due to the battery, but as mentioned before, in practice this weight difference is hardly noticeable, so you can pretty much disregard that aspect. Now, here comes the major advantage of the 18-volt model, the power. This model has significantly more pulling power, more performance, and is ultimately more fun to use in practice. For those who are thinking, I only have a couple of branches to cut with this chainsaw and I want a lightweight device, then I'd recommend the 12-volt model with a small 2 ampere-hour battery. With that, you'll have an incredibly light device in your hand. So far, so good. Now, I'm curious to know your opinion on these two chainsaws. How would you decide and why? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. I'm looking forward to your feedback. And that wraps up this video. If you liked it, please show your appreciation with a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel for free and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. As I mentioned before, you can find the current prices in the video description. Thank you very much for your ongoing support. And with that, I'd say take care, see you next time, and until then, goodbye.